Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of our podcast, Mike and Beans. I'm Bennett Solomon.
I'm Michael DeRosa.
We are both freshmen in college at the moment.
Yep.
I attend the University of Florida, and I am a sports journalism major. And Michael?
I attend the University of Butler. Ignore all the Georgetown stuff in the background. That's from, who am I kidding? I'm still a Hoyas basketball fan. I will ride with them till I die. But I attend Butler University, and I am a sports media major, the one that takes the most skills and brightness, of course.
So, as you can see, both of us have the sports knowledge.
Yep.
And we want to explain our takes to you guys. So, we will throughout this podcast, we will talk about a variety of sports, but today we're going to focus on the NBA playoffs, which basically they started on Tuesday in the play-in games, but the first round games begin tomorrow after the Warriors and Grizzlies game tonight. So, first, let's talk about the Suns and Lakers series. Probably the most anticipated playoff matchup of possibly this season. You kind of, in my opinion, you have to feel bad for the Suns a little bit. You have to feel bad for the Suns because they're the number 2 seed in the West, and the Western Conference is very, very impressive. You know, it's a lot better than the East. And the Wizards is the 8 seed. Not a bad 8 seed right now, but the record shows that the Western Conference is a little bit better than the Eastern Conference. So let's talk about the Suns a little bit. Michael, what do the Suns have to do in order to beat the Lakers? Because I think it's very possible that the Suns can pull it off.
Yeah, I agree. The Suns team is really good. Chris Paul is a really good leader. Chris Paul-led teams are always going to present problems to everybody just because Chris Paul will play his game. He's not going to waver at all. He will play the game he wants to play, and he's really going to have to. Defensively, you have to, they have all right options to defend LeBron and AD. DeAndre Ayton is not known for his defense, but you could have worse guys on AD, and Jay Crowder can guard AD and LeBron, kinda. That's also not the worst matchup. And Mikal Bridges is a really good lockdown wing, but he's not strong enough to guard LeBron. But, they're going to have to be able to contain those guys. That's the key to this series is their defense, because on the other end, we know the Suns are going to score. They rank 4th in the NBA in offensive efficiency. Chris Paul is an excellent leader, and Devin Booker just gets buckets. Ain't nothing you're going to do about it. He's going to get buckets if he's on.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with you. And going back to what you said about a Chris Paul-led team, a lot of people, I think, are, underrating and kind of overlooking the Suns a little bit with, their ability to score and Chris Paul's ability to lead a team. That Thunder team last year was not supposed to make the playoffs. And they gave the Rockets, I believe, right, in the first round.
Yeah.
They gave the Rockets with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, 2 very, very good players, a run for their money. So if this is, the Suns are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2010. So I think Suns fans should definitely be excited for this year because they could definitely make a run. Now, with the possibility of the Lakers, well, actually, first, let's start at this. Who do you think wins this series?
I think the Suns are, as you said, I think they're an underdog with a chance. Even though they are the better seed, they're definitely an underdog in the series. Let's be real. With the Lakers, you got to throw out all the regular season numbers with them just because Bron played 45 games, AD played 36. I think the Suns are a dog with a chance, but I'd be an idiot to go against AD and LeBron in the first round. I'd just be an idiot too. I can't do it. They've just shown us so many times that they're just those guys. So I'll have the Lakers in 6. Fun series though, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can see that. But this is actually an interesting stat. But LeBron has never lost a first-round playoff game. So this is the series. I think that he will lose his first ever first-round playoff game. Doesn't mean that he's going to lose the series. Not one bit. But in my opinion, I can see the Suns coming out of this. I see the Suns coming out of this. Ooh. I just think LeBron and AD probably the best duo in this league, and then you can combine some of the Nets players together. But you could just tell that the Lakers were not the same in the the last half of the season. Even when I know LeBron didn't play a lot, But I don't know. I have a feeling that, CP3 is going to lead these Suns. And, people may say, oh, they don't have, enough experience in the playoffs. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, first time in the playoffs. But Jay Crowder made the finals last year. Chris Paul has been in the playoffs multiple times. And like we said, great leader. I would not be surprised if the Suns pull this out in 6 games. But I really hope this goes to a 7-game series, because it's probably, if it goes to a 7-game series, it will most likely be one of the best that hopefully we've ever watched.
I love it. It's the first segment of our first podcast, and you're giving a hot take. I love it. And it's one I can see happening too. It's not one of those just crazy hot takes out of left field, like, oh, the Wizards are going to sweep the Sixers. It's something that's believable, and I can get behind it. I like the Suns team. I'm not as sold on them on you are, clearly. I think I'm more sold on the Lakers than you are, but I'm going to be watching the series for sure. I think it's a fun one. I think it's probably the best series we've got. I like the take. I like it.
All right. We're going to stay in the Western Conference here, and we'll talk about this Clippers and Mavericks series and the potential of future rounds after that game, because, if the Lakers fall to the Suns, this, I believe, is the Clippers' time to make a run and make that finals with Kawhi and Paul George. Because if Kawhi goes on one of his, Toronto Raptors playoff runs, who's going to stop the Clippers? Because Paul George has definitely improved, in my opinion, this year. Now, when the playoffs come along, we all saw last year he did not play well in the playoffs, especially in those final games against the Nuggets, I believe. So, is this the perfect opportunity for the Clippers to break through, make a run, and ultimately win their first ever championship?
I think this is a very good opportunity. I love this first round matchup for the Clippers, even though the Mavericks won the regular season series 2-1. I mean, the Clippers were just sleepwalking their way through the regular season. Like, they're just able to because they're that good. They have 2 stud wings, as you mentioned, in Kawhi and PG. That's a horrible matchup for Luka because they have multiple guys they can put on Luka, and the Mavs can't stop anybody. They can't play defense on anybody. So I think you look at the Clippers. I think Clippers get through this series. Both teams play a decently slow tempo. Again, I think that benefits the Clippers. I think every single aspect of this series really benefits the Clippers. This is an excellent first-round matchup for them. And I watch a ton of college hoops, believe it or not. The Mavs are basically Iowa. They don't stop anybody, but they can score with the best of them. But when the Clippers can play defense and score with the best of them, horrible matchup all around. Love the Clippers in the first round. I think Clippers take this one in 5, frankly. I think this is one of the easier first-round series to predict. And then look at the Clippers' road to the future. Either the Jazz, Grizzlies, or Warriors. None of those teams scare me for the Clippers. And then the bottom half, you'll get someone good. I think we'll probably talk about that one a little later, but I really like this Clippers team. There was just something off about them when they were in the bubble. I don't know what it was, but something just felt off. It didn't feel like they were all on the same page. I think that's going to change this year. I think they've got the pieces to make a decent run. So, yeah, I like this Clippers team a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Lue, new coach. It's a possibility. Maybe they're flowing a little better. But, we saw this matchup in the bubble, like you said. And you can never count out Luka Doncic in the Mavs. Luka will provide the fireworks, hit clutch shots. So I can see the Mavs maybe winning 2 games out of the series. But like you said, it's very possible the Clippers can win this game in 5. And I ultimately see the Clippers winning this series. So now let's shift over to the East. Now, I think the most intriguing matchup in the East is this Heat and Bucks. It's the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. They met in the Eastern Conference semifinals last year. Milwaukee was heavily favored, and the Heat beat them in 5. Do the Bucks kind of have a different kind of motivation right now, knowing that they ended their season, or the Heat ended the Bucks season last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they absolutely have to. They have to come out with a fire, knowing that this is the team that beat them, and they were. I mean, that last year was looked at as the Bucks' year. You have to come up with a fire. The Bucks won the season series 2-1. The 2 games were played really early, and Jimmy Butler didn't play in the last game of the series, so take that for what you will. But for a like watching perspective, I love this series, but for like a picks perspective, I hate it because these are two teams I would pick to beat the Sixers in the second round. I really like both these teams. Yeah, I mean, with the Bucks, you have to be worried about the future. It's just, yeah, if this isn't the year, what happens with Giannis? You just traded everything for Drew Holiday. Is that enough to keep Giannis? What do you do with Chris Middleton? But I do think the Bucks come out of this series. I think you go 6 or 7, and I think people are really disrespecting this Heat team. Like, the Heat are really good. The big key in this series, I think, is the tempo. Milwaukee tries to play the second fastest pace, or plays the second fastest pace in the league, and we'll try to speed them up, where Miami plays the second slowest pace in the league. Whoever really will dictate the tempo, I think, will win this series. And I think it is a little easier to slow the game down than it is speed it up. But I will take the Bucks. I'm on Giannis. I really like this Bucks team this year. Drew Holiday, I think, is a huge addition because I think it gives him a guy to put on Jimmy or to put on Tyler Hero if he's going ballistic. And I think the Bam-Giannis matchup is going to be awesome for the next couple of years. I think Bam's going to be a star. And he kind of is already, but I think he's one of the more underappreciated players in the league just because he's so important to what the Heat do. If like when Bam was hurt, the Heat were awful last year. They didn't belong almost in the playoffs. I think, yeah, I like this Milwaukee team. I'm going to take the Bucks, not super confidently though. I think the Heat really can win this series. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the Heat won this series, but I just think in the end, Giannis is going to be too much. Drew Holiday makes a huge difference here. They fit perfectly, and I'll take the Bucks. I don't love it, but I'm going to do it.
I know I can agree with you here because I think everyone underestimated the Heat because of how slow of a start they had. You know, they were one of the worst teams in the league for the first half of the season. So it's not a surprise that people would pick the Bucks, you know, like that. But Jimmy Butler can be a very different player in the playoffs. I think the Heat may have one of the best chemistry teams in the league. So, you know, that's chemistry can work a lot better than just superpower, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, this is probably one of the behind the Suns Lakers, another very good series.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Now, let's stay in the East for a minute. Let's talk about the Nets. Do you see them losing? Do you see a certain team in the East that could give them problems?
So yeah, for the Nets, I don't think the Celtics give them any trouble. I'll touch that one really quick. I just think I'm going to say the Nets win in 5 just because I just see the headline of Skip Bayless's next show being the Nets lost to the injured Celtics. That means they can't win a series. So just had to put that out there. But I don't think I think the best challenge to them is the winner of the Bucks Heat series. I mean, I think those are two teams that are really team basketball. They play as a team really well. And Giannis is going to be a tough matchup, or Bam Adebayo is a really tough matchup. And I think when you look, so I have the Bucks. I said I have the Bucks. And I feel like you can see some like 2011 Heat syndrome here, where that team that was just awesome with LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh, but it was their first year and that they really hadn't like blended together. And they faced against a team that beat him, that had a legit star in Dirk, played very good on the defensive end, and had multiple second options that showed up and were able to take over some games. Whether luck or not, JJ Barea showed up that series. I think that's the only time we've ever seen JJ Barea really ball out, but he did. And I think that Bucks team follows almost that exact same recipe. Giannis is the star. Drew Holiday is a great defender. They play great team defense. Chris Middleton's another piece who can go off. I like Dante DiVincenzo's game. Bobby Portis, I think, is a tough matchup just because he's a big who can space out their bigs and either Jared Allen, James Jordan, or whoever they run out there. They might have to go small against the Heat or the Bucks, excuse me. And that defense of the Nets scares me. That defense really scares me. They just Harden's not a good defender. When he's active, sure, he's a better defender, but not great. And then you got PJ Tucker for the Bucks who did just sign on the other end. It's like, you know what? You get a guy who knows Harden pretty well. He's a good guy to fit on that team to go on a run. The Bucks are I'm in on this Bucks team this year. I don't know why. I was not in on them last year, and no one's talking about them this year. But for some reason, I'm just in on them. Even though he's never going to play in the playoffs, probably. They got my guy Sam Merrill out of the draft. I loved him coming out of the draft. I think he was the last pick of the draft, but I don't care. You know what? They drafted my guy. I'm in on the team. I liked Bobby Portis ever since he came out of Arkansas, SEC Player of the Year over the Karl Anthony Towns Kentucky team. Love that team. I love watching Drew Holiday play. He was great in 2K too for my player. So I'm gonna I'm gonna be an idiot here. I'm gonna do the one thing that everyone shouldn't do. That's bet against the team with 3 stars, and I'm gonna take the Bucks to beat the Nets. Dumb, absolutely. It's my one upset pick. I have to have an upset pick somewhere. I don't like watching Harden play at all, so I think part of it is just me wanting them to lose. But I'm gonna take the Bucks to beat them. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really see anyone beating the Nets. In my opinion, I don't see anyone beating the Nets. But I think if there's one team that's going to do it, I don't think it's the Bucks. I think it's going to be the Sixers. I think a lot of people underestimating the Sixers. The Sixers are the 1 seed in the East, and I know the Eastern Conference is not as good as the Western Conference, but they're the 1 seed for the reason, and I think people should really understand that. Joel Embiid, having the best season of his career, definitely going. I mean, of course, he's in the MVP talks, but that's another conversation. I mean, is it? But I think it's going to Steph Curry. But anyway, back to the Sixers.
I think it goes to Jokic, but we'll get there later.
Ben Simmons is a very good defender. Tobias Harris is another, very impressive scorer. I think the Sixers could give the Nets a run for their money. And with the matchups the Sixers kind of have right now, they have the Wizards. The Wizards may get 1 game out of it, but I don't know. Maybe we are Wizards fans, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So let's pray for the Wizards. But anyway, yeah, I think the Sixers, easily win that series. But then I believe they play the winner of the Knicks and the Hawks.
Yep.
So, we know how this New York team is in the regular season. We have no idea how they're going to be in the playoffs. And again, another young Hawks team. So that's why I think the Sixers may kind of cruise a little bit to the Eastern Conference Final to see the Nets. But like I said in the beginning, I just don't see anyone beating the Nets. So that's my take.
I'll jump in and talk about the Sixers just for a bit, just because. So for the first series, Bradley Beal dropped 60 in, I think, the second game of the series. It was early in the season, and he averaged 46.7 points per game in those 3 games against the Sixers. So I think Bradley Beal is just going to go ballistic this series. I think that's really the Wizards' best hope. Ben Simmons is an awesome matchup for Russ, just because you want a bigger guy who can be a decent athlete and force Westbrook to shoot jump shots. And Russell Westbrook has never seen a jump shot he doesn't like and will take every single jump shot he wants. And the Wizards can't defend a wing. They can't do it for life. You saw Tatum drop 50 on them, and frankly, it looked like he was doing it in his sleep. I think Tobias Harris goes off against the Wizards, so if there's like a guy to watch, I think it's Tobias Harris. The Sixers team is pretty deep too. I like Matisse Thybulle, great defender. Shake Milton's a really good player. Danny Green, and they also have Dwight Howard. I think the Dwight Howard and Embiid combo is a really tough matchup for the Nets, just because they got bigger, stronger guys who can score on you inside. I don't see the Sixers team beating the Nets, though. I see the Sixers beating the Wizards in 5. I think that makes sense. I think, give the Wizards a game just because Russ will have 1 good game and Bradley Beal will go ballistic. And then I think we might talk about the Hawks-Knicks series a little later if we want to. If not, but I like that series. I'm going to take the Knicks just because. Why not? It's the Knicks. It'll be fun.
Here, how about this? Let's talk about that Knicks series right now.
Let's do it.
Knicks probably the biggest story of the season.
Oh, yeah.
First time in the playoffs since 2013. And, Julius Randle, he's nominated for Most Improved Player. He'll probably win it, in my opinion. But maybe he should have gotten some MVP talks because the Knicks are number 4 in the East. So, you gotta tip your cap to Julius Randle and the Knicks because they've done very well, with the circumstances of the past, 8 years.
Yep.
They not the best organization-wise. Fans were, had bags on their head in the stands. Now, they're selling out their playoff games, in 10 minutes. Yep. So could you see the Knicks making a run?
So, yeah, for the Knicks Hawks series, I think this is a very, very close series. I think this is one of the most 50-50 series in the playoffs. The Knicks swept the season series 3-0, despite I don't really know how. They just did. They're good in the regular season. But at the same time, Trae Young is probably the best player on the floor in this series. But Julius Randle also averaged 37.3 points per game in those 3 games against the Hawks. So there's a clear matchup problem for the Hawks there. The Knicks, I mean, they don't have a ton of shooting. They don't have a ton of consistent scorers, but their defense is elite. Elite. They are 4th in the league in defensive efficiency, and I think that's the biggest advantage they have against almost every team. The Knicks defend really well. The Hawks don't at all, and I'm going to choose defense over offense. I think that's just, you know what? This Knicks team is fun. Say what you want. They're fun. Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Derrick Rose. That's a fun team. They're not the best, but they're just fun. So you know what? I like watching them play. So I'm going to pick the Knicks to beat the Hawks, but I think the matchup with the Sixers is an awful matchup for the Knicks because the Knicks and the Sixers are basically the exact same team, except the Sixers have more talent. So, I mean, I just think the Knicks could win the first series, and New York deserves to win a series. You know what? They deserve to have some fun. I think they take the first series in 7, but it'd be nice to see the Twitter victory laps of Knicks fans being like, oh, we finally praised Jesus. We basically won the Super Bowl and the NBA Finals at the same time by winning one series. They deserve it, but I think the Sixers beat them easily. It's an awful matchup. I think the Sixers, as you said, can sleepwalk or just walk their way to the finals, just coast there easy, or the Eastern Conference Finals, and make it there. But you know what? The Knicks are fun. I like this Knicks team. Let's go.
All right, well, let's shift away from the East for a little bit. The East will definitely be, interesting to see how it pans out. But I want to talk about the Jazz because 1 seed in the West have been dominating all year. Donovan Mitchell making himself just more of a superstar, and Rudy Gobert having another very solid defensive year. But there's just so much power in the West. You just have to wonder, is this one of those 1 seeds that just got lucky with, other teams not performing in the regular season, with the Lakers being the 7, the Clippers are the 4, the Warriors could possibly get in as the 8. But the Jazz, I think, are good enough to make a run. But let's hear your take first.
Yeah, so I think the Warriors do beat the Grizzlies. This is going to come out after that, so I hope I just don't expose myself already that quick. That would be a tough scene. But
Ja Morant could give the Warriors some trouble.
There's a chance that the Grizzlies win. I just don't think they do. But the Jazz remind me of that Hawks team that had 4 guys win Eastern Conference Player of the month or the week or whatever at one different time, just because.
This the Josh Smith, Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver team?
It was Al Horford, Paul Millsap, Kyle Korver, and Jeff Teague. I think it was 2014, 2015, if I remember correctly, where that Hawks team was the 1 seed, somehow.
They always put LeBron and the Cavs in the playoffs.
Yep, and they just got destroyed. Mm-hmm. That wasn't even a series. I think this Hawks team, this Jazz team reminds me a lot of that. They're very good in the regular season, and I think they even could win the first round series against the Warriors or the Grizzlies. I think they do win both. I think the Warriors present much more problems for the Jazz just because Steph Curry is Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. But in the end, I do think the Jazz can take that series, though. Shout out Juan Toscano Anderson, though. He stunk at Marquette. He averaged 4 points per game in his college career. Now he's on the Warriors. So good for him there. But I don't like any of the supporting players on this Warriors team. I don't trust them much. I don't trust Andrew Wiggins that much. Draymond Green's going to do what Draymond Green does, but they need scoring at this point, and Klay Thompson isn't walking through that door. So, yeah, I think the Jazz do win that first series, but then when they match up against the Clippers, so I'm very confident make that game. The Clippers match up really well. The Jazz don't have anyone I trust on Kawhi or PG, and I think the Clippers have many guys they can put on Donovan Mitchell. And then they have guys that can put on the secondary options that the Jazz really have. The Jazz are really good because they're deep. Donovan Mitchell can give you buckets. Rudy Gobert is really good inside. They got Bogdanovich who can give you buckets. Jordan Clarkson's probably 6th man of the year. They have many guys who can score on you, but the Clippers just do that. And if we're talking about offenses, Jazz are 3rd in the NBA in offensive efficiency. Clippers are 2nd. Clippers are a better offensive team than the Jazz. Clippers shoot the lights out from deep. So, yeah, I think the Clippers are a horrible matchup for the Jazz. I think the Clippers take them pretty easy, frankly. I don't think Clippers choke 2 years in a row. I don't see the Clippers really losing to this Jazz team. So yeah, I think the Jazz have an early exit. The draw is just bad for them. I feel like they do better against either the Lakers really or the Suns and the Clippers, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, like the Western Conference is just full of elite players, elite teams, and a lot of it's going to be very fun to watch. This is probably one of the most exciting playoffs that we've probably watched in a while, at least Western Conference wise.
Yeah.
I don't know about the East, but we'll see what happens. All right, our playoffs talk kind of has come to an end, so let's shift over to one more topic. Let's do MVP because you said earlier you think Nikola Jokic will be winning MVP. And why do you say this?
Jokic just had an incredible statistic season. I don't think there has been a guy who has just been able to combine this way of scoring and volume with efficiency. I'm trying to pull up some stats as we talk, but it is going slower than I had everything prepared except this. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. And you know what? It's being thrown on the spot. It tests your ability to adapt. I like it. Jokic averaged 26 points per game this season. That's he's not leading the league in scoring by any means, but he's also doing it on really good efficiency. He's shooting 56% from the field, which is insane on 18 attempts. That's ridiculous. He's shooting 38% from three, which is, again, ridiculous, which means 60% from two. He's 86% from the line, averaging 10 boards a game and 8 assists per game. He's doing everything really efficiently. He's not bad defensively. And he's been amazing for this Nuggets team. I think you can make an argument for Curry, as you mentioned, just because he's Steph Curry. He's getting buckets everywhere. And I think you can make an argument for Embiid, too. Those are the three guys. But when you just take that combination of volume and efficiency that Jokic is bringing out, I think you have to take a guy like him. It's a fun race, though. Jokic would be one of the less talked about MVPs in a couple years past. But I think Jokic is the MVP this year.
Yeah, and I can definitely get on your side with the Jokic. It's just I think Steph Curry will win this MVP. Don't get me wrong. He's had an amazing season. The last month and a half has been, insane to watch. I don't think another player could really do it, in my opinion, just how he's been able to score like that. The Warriors weren't in the playoffs 2 months ago, and, Steph's battled the team, back into contention a little bit. But the one thing with this MVP race, I think it's evident throughout the years that, the media will kind of pick a story in the beginning and run with it. So that's why, Joel Embiid could win it because a lot of people talked about him in the beginning of the season. But Steph Curry has won MVP before already. He's already a big name in the league. And I think fans kind of honestly want to see him despite the efficiency that Jokic, has been able to achieve. Like you said, stat-wise, Jokic may deserve it. He's led that Nuggets team with no Jamal Murray, in the last, few months of the season.
Yeah.
The Nuggets to the 3 seed, right? So, I think now I kind of want Nikola Jokic to win the MVP, but because of the media, because of, you're seeing thousands of Steph Curry highlights on House of Highlights, Bleacher Report every night. You maybe see 1 or 2 Jokic highlights.
If you're lucky.
It's kind of unfair, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Jokic should be getting more attention, but because of this media, because it'll get these viewers and whatnot, Stephen Curry will probably win, in my opinion.
Yeah, the narrative game is always a thing. It's a thing in every sport. I think the only reason I'm not in on Curry winning it is just because if they win tonight, they're the 8 seed. Mm-hmm. If not, they don't make the playoffs. When was the last time an MVP didn't make the playoffs? Has that ever happened? When was the last time they gave an MVP to a guy who was the 8 seed? Steph went ballistic the last half of the year. Early in the season, people were like, oh, he can't lead a team or whatever, 3 games into the year. That was definitely an overreaction, but he's shown he can lead a team, but they're not winning that much. I think winning is the end. Most valuable to your team. I think that's the argument that's not going to have Steph Curry win the MVP. Though I don't know when the awards guys vote on it. I think that changes every year. But if they're voting after the playoffs, Jokic loses in the first round, Steph Curry somehow beats the Jazz, yeah, then the argument for Steph Curry is going to rise, even though MVP is supposed to be a regular season award. People will still be like, oh, Steph Curry won in the playoffs. I'll write his name on this piece of paper. It's easier. I just don't think they're going to give it to an 8 seed. I don't.
Interesting. Well, Shaq and Chuck actually, I think, had this argument on Inside TNT. But, in this kind of, like you said, with the 8 seed, it kind of explains, despite what Bradley Beal does for the Wizards, never gets MVP talks.
Yep.
You said he's averaging 40 points a game against the Sixers?
It was 46.
46. That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
And, Bradley Beal has been a lifesaver for this Wizards team.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily, Russell Westbrook has kind of woken up. But that's why you never see Bradley Beal in these MVP talks. He's averaging 35 points a game. Can't win.
Yeah, his team just doesn't win.
In today's game, that's huge. And I agree with it. You should be on a good team. I mean, it's kind of different in like most of the sports, you see with baseball and Mike Trout. Mike Trout's just a freak.
He's just that dude.
The Angels have made the playoffs once. So can be very sad to see. Any last words, Michael?
Yeah, I think we should actually hit on like our finals predictions just to end this one, just so it feels like that's a good title to start off with. So yeah, in the end, I'm gonna have the Clippers, not very confidently, but I'm gonna have the Clippers beating the Bucks in the finals. I think that would be an awesome series. But if I'm picking against the Nets and I think the Clippers beat the Lakers. So if I'm gonna pick against the Nets, it's gonna be the Bucks making the finals, I think. And I like this Clippers team. I think this is their year. I don't think people are talking about them enough. So I'm gonna have the Clippers winning it all. What about you, Bennett?
I agree with you on the Clippers side in the West. I think the Clippers. It's very possible the Clippers, kind of dominate in the playoffs and make it to the finals. But I just, like I said, I don't see anyone stopping the Nets. I think it's going to be Clippers Nets, and I don't think anyone. I mean, some for maybe 6 or 7 games, but no, I don't think anyone has seen really the big three on the Nets, together in action for like a good amount of the season. I think how many games have they played together? Do you know?
Not many.
Not many. So, what are they capable of? But at the same time, there are a lot of questions to it. So
yeah, that's why I'm not picking them. I'm worried about the team chemistry angle. I think that'd be my pick for the next year's finals. Like just way too early pick for next year's finals is the Nets for me. But this year, I don't know. I just feel like something's going to be like they're going to hit some adversity, and I don't know if they're going to take it very well. That's my take on the Nets.
Kevin Durant could be the most unstoppable player in the world.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I think he leads the Nets to the finals, and I think it could be the Clippers' year. If the Clippers and Nets match up in the finals, that could definitely go to 7 games. But I see the Nets going through. I thought it from in the beginning. Once they got Harden, damn, Nets are going to win this. They're going to win this championship. So, but it'll be interesting to pan out. Thank you for watching the first inaugural episode of this Mike and Beans podcast. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.